Hi folks, let's walk through two different Tormach 1100 recommendations. The first is getting a pretty fully optioned machine, and the second is if you have to bootstrap or watch your pennies. The Excel file is available to download. It's based off of starting with their ATC package, so I would recommend add that to your cart, and then you can add and edit and remove individual items. There is no discount for buying one of the Tormach packages. The packages are simply a way to add all the stuff into your cart at once. The three things I want to first talk about: touchscreen, drawbar, and Heimer. The touchscreen, I think, is a really important additional tool for your machine. Being able to touch, especially to switch between jogging and increment modes and adjusting some of your feed rates and overrides and opening programs, I find it's a big boost on both efficiency, but also actual machine safety and operation. Power drawbar, I'm not alone in this, is an absolute must buy. It makes changing tool changes very quick, and it avoids, if you don't have a power drawbar, of having to use multiple wrenches, and it takes quite a bit of time. I would also really encourage picking up a Heimer. While they're not inexpensive, they are incredibly accurate. We use it both to tram in things like vices and parts, but also to find X, Y, and Z locations. If you're going to buy the Heimer, pick up at least one extra tip. They do break. Like it or not, you're going to break one eventually, and you'll want to have one on hand. A couple of other comments. The auto oiler is nice, but it's optional. We don't mind pulling the handle on ours, manual oilers, and it's about $300, which if you can afford it, again, great. But otherwise, I would make sure you've got things like the drawbar and Heimer and good work holding if you've got to watch your budget. I'm not personally a big fan of the jog shuttle. Just a personal opinion. Some people do really like it. I find I am faster with the keyboard because I can move multiple axes at the same time. And I find that I'm safer because I have a confidence in the feel of the keyboard and the speed versus this. The collet wrenches are nice and we like using them. I found that this aluminum set, it wears out more quickly than it should. So consider looking for a steel set or just be careful when you use them. The tramp pillow is only needed if you're using flood coolant, which generally we're going to recommend that you actually use a fog buster instead. A fog buster is a nice alternative to flood coolant because flood coolant is not great if you're not using your machine every few days at a minimum. And flood coolant can be messy. It's more difficult if you're going to ever film the machine or you're going to have the machine open or no enclosure. And most importantly for us, the fog buster allows us to use higher pressure air blowing through the nozzle of the fog buster to evacuate chips. And coolant tends to do three things. It provides thermal cooling of the part. It lubricates the cut, but it also helps with chip evacuation. And chip evacuation is the most important, and the fog buster, we think, does a great job of that. Fog buster is listed right here on the list. The only thing on here that's not Tormach specific is an Amazon link for some USB extension cords. We find them very handy to have extension cords coming out of the machine controller up to things like your keyboard or your mouse, accessories, and to plug in thumbsticks for PathPilot. Having the extension cords just help you route the cables and use zip tie to keep things nice and neat. We are very biased on this one, but we would love to see folks use fixture plates on their machines. We at Saunders Machine Works and NYC CNC make one that Tormach now resells, which we think is great. It does three things. It helps you quickly tram in vices and fixtures. Number two, it protects your cast iron machine table. If you happen to drop a wrench or you happen to damage something, I'd much rather put a small ding in this than in your Tormach machine. And number three, helps you hold parts that are larger than the work envelope of the machine. That total comes to about $23,000. If you need to back off that number, two things to think about are the enclosure and the ATC. The enclosure I actually think is mandatory. The Tormach enclosure is about $2,400. So that's an opportunity to save some money. You can swap it out. They have a DIY frame kit, or you can build your own. Our original enclosure was some PVC tubing and shower curtains. Doesn't look as nice, but I do think its enclosure is important for safety. The Tormach is able to throw chips, especially off of tools like the Superfly or Shearhog. So you want to stay safe. You also want to keep a nice and neat shop. So I really do encourage a type of enclosure. The second thing that you can optionally remove is the ATC at about $4,300 when you add in the accessories. It is very nice to have and we like it, but if you've got to pull the price back, that's the first thing that's going to help you get that price down. If you're bootstrapping, here is our bootstrapping list. Total comes to just over $11,000. Now, the big difference that makes this apples and oranges is in this price up here, you're getting things like TTS collet sets and indicators and other tools to help you run the machine that you may still need to buy, but nevertheless, much lower price point. The PathPilot controller, it is possible to build this yourself. You would need to purchase what I believe is called a Mesa card. I really just don't recommend it. And Tormach is not a huge fan if you do this because they've got to support these machines and they want to give great support. That's difficult to do if you've tried to save money by building your own PC. The monitor you could easily source on your own. Other things that you will need, we just try to mention out here. And if you can buy one more thing, I would really encourage adding a power drawbar to this list. We've got some other items here that we think are super useful when you're getting started, and we'll be adding more of that stuff. Make sure to check back under Learn CNC, what to buy. We've got the article on what to buy Tormach PCNC 1100. The Excel file here, we will keep that updated. For example, when we first filmed this, we didn't have something we really like, which is the TTS tool rack, relatively inexpensive. We just added that to the Excel list. We attach those to our enclosure, and we actually modify them a little to put some aluminum underneath it with drilled out holes. That's just a hair more secure, but we find this a really convenient and safe way to store our tools. But again, make sure to check back for the latest version of this Excel file. Thanks, folks.